Hey, what's up, and welcome back to another episode of the Metro Icon Podcast. Hope everyone is doing well. I am coming off a crazy end of the month of March, and I hope you guys are having a wonderful Easter with all your family and good tidings and blessings. We just celebrated our little girl Billy's 10th birthday yesterday, and it was the most craziest little 10-year-old birthday party I've ever had to host, and for a bunch of little crazy kids hopped up on sugar. But we are past it, and we are here to release this episode. Very fun stuff. Let's talk about the announcements and, of course, those people that are part of making these episodes come out. Make sure you guys are following me on Instagram. Shawn Kay Do It All. Or just go to my website, www.theshowman.live, to get updates and announcements, just like on Tuesdays, where I host bingo karaoke at the library bar every single Tuesday from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m., where bingo numbers are read with every single karaoke performance that comes up on stage for the chance to win one of 3 library bar gift cards that not only go up in value, but you can use towards your tab that night. As well, I have some other dates and nights that might be popping up in the month of April. So again, make sure you guys are following me on Instagram at Shawn Kay Do It All to get announcements of all that. And of course, let's talk about those amazing sponsors, just like InsiderCloth.com, the last microfiber cloth you will ever need. You guys are using your same general fabrics and shirts, pants, whatever you have on you to clean off those glass surfaces and lenses, when you know microfiber cloth is going to do well, but you guys are forgetting it all the time. This is that thing that you can put under the bottom of your shirt and just leave it there, so you never have to think about forgetting your microfiber cloth. It will just be ready on hand, where you can keep the habit, change the fabric. So all you got to do is go to InsiderCloth.com. You can put in the promo code DIACloth. That's DIACLOTH. Get 10% off your first order, just for having the best kept secret under your shirt. InsiderCloth.com, promo code DIACloth. And of course, we know that a lot of these big storms are coming through, going into the spring, summer, and fall for around DFW. For those homeowners that might have some significant hail damage, or just any repairs they might need to do on their house for those storms that came in, make sure you guys are hitting up my guy, Teddy Johnson of D&K Contracting. He is the do-it-all of contract work. And when it comes to dealing with all of those pesky insurance claims, he is the guy to get rid of all of those headaches in making sure you guys get the best return of result. Hear what I'm saying. All you got to do is get a free consultation from Teddy Johnson and email him at teddyj.dkcontracting@gmail.com. Get that consultation. You'll see exactly why every single person goes back to Teddy when they just use him once. He is the real deal. And then, of course, for your next live event, private contract for your private or corporate event, whatever it is, Do It All Entertainment has got the juice to make your event the most elite experience for everyone part of it. Make sure you guys are checking out our website, doitallive.com, or just shoot us an email, an inquiry of your next upcoming event, no matter where it is in the future. Email us at info@doitallentertainment.com. And for your next media production, if you like what you see with the video content through the Metro Icon Podcast, you can email DIA Media through diamediapro@gmail.com. All right. I say it every single week that we have a fun episode coming to you, but it is no less true for this week. I'm talking to Dr. Jamie Jakes. That's right. He is a doctor and comedian through the DFW area that I knew coming into the DFW scene, and kind of constantly been in rotation, seeing him all the time. So I finally had a chance to sit down with him inside of his gym, and we got to break down his life as a chiropractor and a comedian. So go ahead, turn your volumes up, get ready. Here is my episode with Dr. Jamie Jakes.
You can do it all. You can.
Do it all, baby.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Metro Icon Podcast, where you know what we do. We talk about the world of entertainment and media and the icons that live in it. And today we are located in D-Town CrossFit in Dallas, Texas, one of the few locations that you can see my special guest here on the show as a guy that I met through the comedy scene. Very, very funny comedian, but he's also a doctor. He's a doctor. Technically a doctor of the spine. He's also got the strength of Thor, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give a big round of applause to the one and only Jamie Jakes, everybody.
The crowd goes crazy. You're too kind. Stop it.
Keep it going. That's right.
Sit down.
Listen, bro, we come prepared. Not only do I bring the setup, I bring the crowd. I bring the crowd so that they know the people that come onto my podcast, they are a big deal in my eyes. And
could you bring those to some of my open mics I perform at, Shawn?
100%. I wish I wasn't working every Tuesday because I used to come through the Green Gator.
Yeah.
But now that I have my residency at Library Bar, my Tuesdays are usually occupied.
Yeah.
And then if they're not occupied, I always have George Red Speaks being like, man, I need you to fill in for me, bro. I need you to handle my open mic. So it makes it more and more difficult for me to be able to see the other open mics that are going around. But you've made quite a name for yourself within the comedy game, man. I
appreciate
think
it.
you've you're like, I think I've said this even at your open mic, but you are a very impressive specimen.
Okay.
Like, you really are, man. Like, you have a beautiful heart, you're a beautiful soul, you're strong as shit. Like, I watch some of your videos of you, like, lifting 350 pounds, like, straight, like, up over your head, and you're just like, like, you know, it's just like, but then when I meet you in person, it's just like, you have a very like welcoming, soft energy to you, man. So definitely I've definitely appreciated that. How long have you been doing comedy?
I've been doing comedy for about a year and a half now.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually started at the Plano House of Comedy. So right when that club started is when I started my comedy career, because that's actually walking distance from where I live in my apartment right now.
Oh, wow.
And in Plano, and one of my friends had done comedy, and she was like, hey, there's an open mic going on. It's a new one. It's at Plano House of Comedy. You know, you throw your name in the bucket or whatever there.
And you got chosen.
Yeah, I got lucky enough to get my name drawn, and then I just like went up and did some jokes that I was planning on, and I got a few chuckles, which was a few more chuckles than I was expecting.
Yeah, right.
and I was like, after that, I started doing that mic more frequently, and 2-3 months, I started branching out to different ones. So yeah, that's how I got my start.
And then I don't even think it was, like, how long have you had Green Gator then? Because that's the first mic that you started. Right?
Yeah. Which, by the way, on life support right now.
Oh, is it?
Oh yeah. So we had our GM for the Green Gator. He was fired.
Oh no.
Yeah. Shout out to Frank. And honestly, Frank was really hard to work with. Yeah. So I was like,
R.I.P. Frank.
That kind of makes sense. Like, anyways, so he got fired, and they're just like stopping everything. They're not doing any shows there anymore, like at all.
Oh man.
So I'm supposed to hear back actually tomorrow.
Okay.
To see if the mic is still alive or not. The guy that originally booked me to do the whole thing, he's definitely on my side, so he's going to bat for me.
Yeah, well, that's good. I mean, I really hope that you keep that going because, to my understanding, I don't think that they really have any open mics in Irving.
No.
And
that's how I open every show. It's like, hey, welcome. You are at the #1 weekly open mic
in Irving,
Texas.
It's a great title to have, right? And the fact that like the Green Gator in Irving is located literally in the Toyota Music Factory Park. I mean, like the scenes are just dope, you know? Like, I mean, as much as like when I think I was at your very, very first one, and that was like a great show. And I think the few times that I have gone, you've also had like conferences that were in town, and they were just like going to grab dinner, but then they didn't expect they're going to be listening to comedy.
Surprise!
And yeah, you're right.
Came here for the cheap drinks, but listen to our jokes instead. Sorry about it.
And it worked out, like, because sometimes it's like you have those open mics where like you have somebody who, you know, is there for dinner, or like maybe a big party that's there for dinner, and they don't know that an open mic is happening, and then as soon as they find out, they're like, beep, like, let's just go ahead and close out and get the fuck out. But a lot of times they've stuck around, so that's like always been a good encouragement and a good scene to set for a lot of the comedians, because comedians don't want to have to do stand-up for other comedians. Let's just be real about it.
Just caught back from a mic that I did stand-up for other comedians. So yeah, it's nice going to other mics and seeing that sometimes their shows are just as miserable as mine can be. So, but seriously, I do try my hardest to to try and be a good host, to kind of set the expectations, but also get the audience excited enough to stick around. So it's definitely not on accident. It's something I actually put a lot of energy and a lot of thought and a lot of time into, is trying to figure out how we keep these people who aren't there for stand-up comedy and have them actually watch a full like stand-up comedy open mic when you're like, you know, a lot of ups and downs in terms of just comedians, new ones, old ones, but even like the experienced comedians, they're trying out new jokes a lot of time too. So it's like sometimes their sets are not going to be super consistent either. So
yeah, I mean, and I feel that too. I mean, not just even for the open mics. Like sometimes you have these comedy shows that are not at a comedy club. One clear example was a few weeks ago. I did, and I have a comedy bit about it. But like, I did a comedy show at a hookah lounge, and that was my first time. And there was like 70 to 80 like Indians and Muslims and Middle Eastern people that were like all around. And you're going when anyone goes to a hookah lounge, they're not there for the entertainment. They're there to just smoke some hashish or some molasses and just relax and have a conversation with your group of friends. And then like they're being forced to do a comedy show. So like that, I mean, we had some great comedians on there, and like it did not matter how good the comedy was. It was like, my bit now is kind of like Indian people are naturally good at breaking spirits, but it's on a different level at a comedy show, because like even if the joke is good, like the best reaction you'll possibly get is a soft chuckle of approval, and it just goes. It looks like
they shut back back up.
That's all it is. And
I
so,
am kind of jealous of you that you were able to do, because I've definitely never performed in front of an audience like that. Definitely in Dallas and in the DFW area, there's a lot of different diverse crowds.
I would say you're lucky that you didn't. It seems like you've had some great crowds, Jamie.
Well, I would like the experience just to try different jokes on that group of people that I haven't really tried or had the opportunity to yet.
Yeah, I think, and I think the other nerve-wracking thing is like when you have like 3 or 4 comedians before you, and you know that they're good, and then it's not going well, and then your turn is coming up. You're just like, fuck. Like when I got up there, I'm just like, you guys did really good for all the comedians' spirits. Let's give a round of applause on making sure they don't kill themselves tonight after they performed for you.
Yeah, because you can always like kind of talk yourself up, like you're sitting there, you're in. Like there's actual people here. They're kind of sort of listening to comedy, and you're kind of just sitting in the back of the room, and you're like, there's a comedian you've never seen before, or like someone's pretty new, or whatever, and someone's trying out new material, and they have like a really really rough set, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna get up there. I'm gonna fucking crush. I'm gonna knock these people's socks off, and then you see someone you really respect go up, do material, bomb, and you're like, now it's gonna be tough. He's like, oh, my confidence was at a certain level until that happened. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and then but I mean, again, it's like I think you know this as much as any fairly experienced comedian, that like this is just part of the road and the journey of any comedian that's going up. Like this is a game that will humble yourself, and no matter how big you get, no matter like what platforms you end up getting on, like you're going to have even still bombing moments. Like, you have comedians, they've been in the game for over 20 years, 25 years, and been on HBO and have their specials, and still to this day, have tours in cities that like they just nothing works. So it's kind of like, this is always going to be that game that humbles me, and I think, or humbles comedians in general. But I think my thing was that like, being a professional MC, I knew that was kind of my advantage coming into the game, because it's just when it comes to me on stage, like I have no fear being on stand on stage, hold a mic, and just talk, right? So, it's not easy. Did you have any like performance experience like before doing stand up?
No, I would say the most of because I kind of started comedy the same way. Like I started comedy, looking back on it now, where I was so comfortable on stage and so confident before all my sets, like I was almost too confident. Like there was no reason for me to be that confident at that time, right? So but I would say probably what it was is honestly coaching CrossFit and be in front of a group of diverse people and kind of trying to get them excited about something, or trying to make them laugh at something, or trying to just hold their attention for the amount of time that
have them keep going, right?
Yeah. And that kind of goes with like developing relations, and then providing a good product to them, which our product is like sort of fitness, but it's not really like no one really cares about that. It's just like people want to feel welcome and feel like the sense of community, at least at our gym.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where I grew as a person, being comfortable on stage. So my parents were just in town, and they actually reminded me that my little brother, Ben, and I, he's 2 years younger than me. In junior high, there was a talent show, and we did some sort of variety comedy show sort of thing for the class. So I've been on stage. I did like plays. I did like a sort of attempt at comedy, which killed, by the way. I mean, easy crowd. Like the older kids were tough, but the 6 and under grade or whatever, we just murdered. I've kind of been very comfortable, like being like
a presenter
on stage, center of attention. I've actually emceed CrossFit events where I have like announce and MC kind of host a whole CrossFit event with like just like a microphone or whatever. So it's something I've always been pretty comfortable doing, being comfortable on the camera, being comfortable in front of people. I kind of started with the same kind of comfort.
What was your motivation then to start doing stand-up comedy? Because let's just be real. I talked to Kevin Sutton, our Heavenly Father, and he said something very interesting that like his advantage within stand-up comedy that gives him his strength is knowing full well like he doesn't need this game. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't need this career to take off for it to be that like thing that helps him to work his life. He has a full-time job working in marketing and advertising. I mean, you're technical doctor, but like you're a CrossFit trainer and you're a chiropractor, which is a very, very lucrative field to be in. So what was your motivation to go into stand-up?
So first of all, chiropractic, historically a lucrative career. I'm not like super. I'm not getting like super rich. Like maybe one day, like I own my own practice. To answer your original question, I've always wanted to do stand-up. I've always wanted to be a stand-up comedian. I grew up watching stand-up. I watched like anything that was on Comedy Central. And they would replay certain specials, and I would just watch them over and over and over. So I loved I loved the art form. I fell in love with the art form, and I was like, growing up, I mean, maybe you were the same way. Whenever I would like think of something funny that I would do on stage, potentially I would like write it down in my notes section in my phone, and I think I still have them. I've never even gone through them. I'm sure they're all horrible, but I always had this kind of idea of like before I started here, I was like, I'm gonna do this chiropractic thing. I'm gonna do it for a while, and then I'll retire. And when I retire, I'll move to LA or I'll move to New York or whatever, and I'll start doing stand-up comedy like at 50 or 60 years old. That was my idea back then. And then I didn't realize there was such a good comedy scene in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And I had no clue that there was so many opportunities for us here. It's a good place for a new comedian because you can get a lot of stage time here. You can get a lot in front of a diverse audience, and you can become a pillar in the community or be respected in the community soon enough where you can actually be booked on shows and get in front of like actual crowds, which is kind of really where you grow and develop like good habits and stuff in front of like good audiences. So that's why I was so excited to start here, and that kind of coincided with me opening up my own practice. And by the time when I started comedy, I was like pretty much working for myself full time.
Oh wow!
So I also didn't have to worry about like my boss at Target or whatever, one of my patrons or one of my customers like hearing one of the jokes I told and then getting me in trouble for it or like whatever. Like I didn't really have to worry about that because I own my own shit, and if you don't like one of my jokes and you're not going to see me as a patient,
it doesn't matter.
Okay. Well, you're probably not a good patient for me anyway, because I'm trying those jokes out on my patients throughout the day.
You're like, take a deep breath. Tell me what you think about this.
Exactly. So, it's just something I've always wanted to do and was excited for the opportunity to do it. And I kind of set out and like, I'm going to try this for a year and figure out if I'm good at it. And because I had a pretty good feeling I would like it and I would be able to commit myself to it. But I'm like, if I'm not like good at this by a year, I'll call it quits. And then like flash forward to like 6 months later, it's like, man, I'm not being booked on enough shows. So I will say that's probably one of the best things about having like a backup plan, for lack of a better word, or like a side hustle along with the comedy to like really be able to, like you said, like humble myself and take a step back and enjoy the journey of the stand-up comedy experience here in Dallas, Fort Worth, and not have to, worry about like, am I going to make it? How am I going to pay these bills if I don't start getting booked on shows and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's a beautiful piece to have it. I mean, there's a lot of people that they do have so much dependency into the comedy game, and they have this self-expectation that they're just going to start taking off in some way, shape, or form, that it's going to be able to eventually pay the bills. I was having a conversation with George Red Speaks. Like, even if you're making $20 on a comedy show, like, that is very fair. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many, like, I'm putting on a few showcases and stuff, and it's kind of like, it's not easy to produce a show, but like being able to pay out comedians, it's not always a guaranteed thing, because it really is just based on asses in the seats. So if you're able to, make money or make the right context that's putting you in the shows, and you're making even the smallest of buck, like, it's still a very fair thing. So, but you have to have a practical mindset because regardless, you have to have be able to pay all the ways of being able to get to mics or get to shows and keep
gas
the crowd
ain't cheap.
Right.
That would be, I think that would be one of the really, really cool things if we could work it out. And I think George is kind of working on this, and some other comedians are kind of working on this, is if we could get an actual like strip for comedy like they do in LA. They kind of do in New York, where a comedian on a Tuesday night could go to this one mic
and go boom, boom,
and
boom.
then walk or take a scooter that costs $2 to the next mic. So these comedians can get on stage more, and they can do it at a more affordable rate. Because sometimes
more efficiently,
sometimes you're showing up to an open mic and you're like, oh, I can't find parking, so I guess I'll go to the parking spot, and that's $15. And it's like, me, like, I say I don't make a lot of money. I make good money for someone who's 29 on their own, like that sort of thing. But like for me, it's like, oh man, that kind of sucks. I'm here to do 5 minutes. I might buy a beer at this bar. It's gonna be $7 after tip or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I'm in for $25. Like, I'm not gonna get booked on a show and make $25 off of this mic. So it's like, yeah, man, it's you definitely have to have some sort of form of income before you kind of get into or just like what a lot of comedians do, and rightfully so, just like stay with somebody else, like stay with your parents, stay with a friend, so you don't have to pay for rent, so you can just focus on comedy, which is like, man, I respect it so much. But I really like the kind of lifestyle that I've kind of been able to create. Kind of balancing both worlds.
And I think you're coming from a very earnest perspective, because I mean, you breaking down sometimes just the general costs to be able to show up is not actually an issue for you, but you're kind of thinking about it in the way, like the average comedian, like there's a lot of people who are really counting their outgoing and incoming dollars. And so like, I mean, like I totally get that. Cause I mean, even me, like I'm preparing for my fiance and her kids to move down here. And I'll be moving out of my place to stay with my parents just for 2 months but I'm going to be very busy the next 2 months. My wedding season kicks up. So it's kind of like, okay, like I don't really need to pay money for rent, and it's not going to be as bothersome to be able to, operate and pretty much just for sleep and, for my parents. And they're like, all right.
Exactly.
So, but it's a very, very true perspective that like, there is a pretty, you call it substantial investment a lot of times of being able to just even get to a place, and exactly like gas ain't cheap, just that alone. And when you're talking about DFW as a region, like I think the first time that I did 3 open mics, and it was actually, I ended at Green Gator, but I did TK's, then went to Will Call, then went to Green Gator in Irving, and then Irving's close enough to Capel, which is where I stay. And so like I was able to work it out. So I'm like, all right, cool. But like even then, it's like I drive a hybrid, so I'm like, I'm not worried about the miles.
That's a lot. That's still. I mean, that was kind of my idea behind it. Maybe not necessarily 3 mics, but I kind of put it in that central. Or I mean, I was like, that's why I thought it was such a good idea to put it in that central Irving area, So like if you really needed a mic from Fort Worth, you can make your way to my mic. Or I live in Plano, so it's like that's kind of both opposite sides of the spectrum of DFW. So I was like, yeah, I think we're gonna put this mic at this time so you can go do will call or TKs before, and then you can make it to the second half or vice versa. You can probably flip flop if you really needed to. But that's. And that's three that if you listen to like Joe Rogan or Dave Chappelle and all those guys, it's like what you really need to be doing is 3 mics every single night, 4 or 5 days a week, and then hopefully you can get booked on a weekend show. It's like,
how does anyone
can't do that here yet?
It's just so I don't know even. I mean, I'm pretty much work for myself. The only side hustle I do is driving Lyft, but even then, it's like managing my day because I have productions, I do interviews, and then I have like client calls and then things that I'm trying to develop. And so it's kind of like you need to put in that administrative time to sit in front of your laptop and get that work done. Yeah. And then you have the hustle that you're trying to like make some money if you don't have a gig or anything like that. And then outside of that, then you're trying to put in work to go to mics. And it's like mics are also at a limited availability too. Like, sometimes you can sign up for a mic and not get called at all, And
hey, by the way, so is your energy. Like when you are working all day, it's like I mean, I have long days on Sundays, and the mic's at 3 o'clock here, and it's like driving, giving myself a pep talk, like, all right, man, you're about to go be funny. Like, and then you kind of get in the room, and hopefully some comedians are getting you to laugh, and you're like, oh, I'll say something funny about that comedian, make fun of this person in the audience, and it's like it gets the juices flowing. But at some point, it's just like you don't have the energy.
It's a mental. It definitely more than anything, comedy is such a mental game to hurdle over, just so that because as a performer you're trying to maintain a status, whether there's 5, 50 or 500 or 5,000 people in front of you, you want to perform the same. And so and not a lot of people understand that, like, and I think there's, because even if there's 5 people, you don't know if 1 or 2 of those people are actually producers, and they're just looking to see who can still come through even if there's not a crowd, and so and you're not a DFW native, right?
No, I'm from Michigan originally.
Right.
But to go back to what you were saying, like, my whole goal when I'm on stage is like, I'm just gonna try and make these people laugh.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck like who these people are, but if I'm like, you're a regular audience member, you're a regular audience member, you're a regular audience member, like, I don't care if I'll probably never see you again, but I want you to leave here and like maybe not think like, oh, Jamie Jakes, the comedian, but like that guy with like a mustache and a man bun. He really made me laugh. He really made my day. So that's kind of like the motivation. That's kind of like the thought process that
I think like me, I knew that my purpose was to leave impact, and I think that's probably similar to your path, that you want to be memorable, you want to leave impact. Like, I'm sure that like even with your clients through CrossFit or your patients and stuff, like you're trying to leave an impression where you're like, man, like I trust this dude and I want to come back. And I totally get that. I get that feel, the mentality. So when did you come here from Detroit or from Michigan?
I grew up in the Metro Detroit area and like the suburbs. My parents both worked for GM. They are now retired and moved to the country in Michigan called Hillsdale. It's like South Central Michigan.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of where I stayed my last year or two when I was in Michigan. I went to a school called Alma College, like another little D3, like small liberal arts college up in Michigan. And after that, 2016 is when I moved down to Texas for chiropractic school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you went to chiropractic school here in Dallas, and then you just ended up staying.
Parker University, yeah. So a lot of that is the CrossFit community. And just all the people I made, all the relationships I formed in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Like I had like 2 or 3 chiropractors in town like, hey, you should come work for me when I graduated. Just because I met so many people. Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I was a bit of a wild card dumbass when I was in school. Like I think I've grown a little bit since I was like 23 or 24. But anyways, I just formed a lot of really, really good relationships, a lot of really good people around town. It's like I could pick up and start over again, or I could stay here, work for this chiropractor, see how it goes, and after that, maybe open up my own practice. Or the plan was just to work for them until that kind of worked itself out. But things happen, and then you're like, okay, I'm getting the hell out of here. I'm just opening up my own practice.
And so, and that's the location you have in Grapevine, correct?
Yeah. So, so long story short, I worked for Ironically, a chiropractor that worked right there in that back room. In D-Town CrossFit. Was planning on working for them for the foreseeable future, 5-10 years. I think that's what I said in my interview. And then they brought me on. They were like, all right, we're going to train you and we're going to pay you kind of like as an assistant, which was like $25 or $30 an hour. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the most I've ever made ever. Like, this is a great deal. Like, yeah, please teach me everything you know. And then we'll renegotiate a contract after that. And if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't work out, like, you taught me everything you know.
Yeah.
It's pretty dumb of them because I basically they taught me everything they knew, and then when the time came to pay me, they were like, "We're offering you this." And I like ran this. I'm like, "This doesn't seem right."
Yeah.
And I ran this past one of my kind of pseudo mentors slash like staff docs that I worked under as an intern during school. And he's like, "Yeah, Jamie, this is really bad. You shouldn't get comfortable here."
Yeah.
So I like tried to renegotiate. And they gave me an offer that was roughly 20% more, by the way, than my other female colleague in chiropractic. I told her, I'm like, this is what they offered me. This is what you should ask for. This is what they offered me. And she went up. They said no. I tried to say, you should come with me and work with me. She's like, no, I'm staying here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. There's that.
So it's like that. I'm like, you got it. Women, take care of yourself and like, respect yourself for like what you're worth, because there are scumbag doctors like this person over here.
Value yourself, women.
Yeah, and men too, by the way.
Yeah,
but it's in my opinion, more prevalent, at least in my field, in terms of women. Like, doctors know they can kind of manipulate women and make them feel less than, so they can take less money and they can profit off of them. Anyways, that's a sidebar to say, out of spite, I started a practice.
I think that's regardless of the reason or motivation behind it, I mean, that's a strong feat to start your own practice, to have your own space. And you just celebrated your birthday. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
And one more year till 30. Let's go.
Anyway, so the Grapevine practice, that's where I first opened up, actually in the back of a CBD shop I used to work for in grad school.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, actually, I kept working for them because I was so poor. I kept working for them when I graduated, as I was working for them over there, just to make ends meet, pay rent, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I started my practice in Grapevine, associated with Grapevine CrossFit. And then I actually had patients because I kept coaching here. And then they said they were leaving. There was only one doctor back there still working. And eventually they said they were leaving. The day they left, the day they moved out, I moved in to that front office that you saw on the way in here.
Oh, okay.
So that's kind of like the full circle of, and I've been coaching here ever since. They actually tried to get me fired, but they don't own the gym. So that's the whole story.
So I do want to press on one thing, man, because in the let's call it the world of CrossFit, I think that there's sometimes a little bit of a stigma that can kind of go behind CrossFit. I think people will call it like a cult-like fitness community. Yeah. And I think that there's let's call it any type of organization or any type of building, right? Like, you develop a specific culture within those walls. Yep. And sometimes some cultures could be little abrasive or damaging, and some is just really about unity within community. Like, what do you say to I guess the stigma of the cult mentality of CrossFit?
It is justified, and I think it is a lot less. It was a lot better than it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. 5 or 6 years ago, we had our patron saint of CrossFit, our Jesus, our God of CrossFit, Greg Glassman, and I was kind of always on to him. He's a little scumbag. I'm on to you, Greg Glassman. But everyone else loved him. Yeah. Everyone else loved him, and he ended up just making some horrible decisions. He kind of cultivated that cult kind of mindset where everyone was just following him religiously, and then he got in trouble because people found out he was a little bit of a creep. and he kind of had to sell the business because he owned the business. He started the business and kind of sort of created the methodology, even though he stole from everybody else. Anyways, and then he left, and I think that was kind of the catalyst to everyone being like, okay, maybe there are other forms of fitness that are also functional, and maybe some are better for me than others, and maybe CrossFit's not for me. Maybe CrossFit could be a tool that you use for other things that you want to do.
Yeah.
So it kind of broke that mold of like CrossFit or you don't fit in here.
Yeah.
So there was kind of, and it's still a little bit culty in some circles, some very small condensed circles that have kind of dissolved over the past few years after all the fallout of everything and the new ownerships and everything. But now I think this gym has a very, very good community. But I don't think it's necessarily a cult because it's very, very healthy. Everyone is overall very, very supportive and is least cliquey as any organization with over 200 members could possibly be.
Yeah.
Like there are some people who hang out with each other, but like everyone gets in the same class. We had 4 other CrossFit gyms in the Dallas-Fort Worth area shut down within the past like year and a half or 2 years, and we have accepted in a lot of their members seamlessly.
Oh,
like
nice.
they just like, they kind of joined our community and nobody felt weird about things. It was all very quick and easy to where now we have a community that's kind of like policing and cultivating itself to where we, a year ago or 2 years ago, we would have to actually set up what I call gym camaraderie building events, which is like, we're going to go drink at a bar outside of the gym together, like get the community outside of the gym together. And now there are like sign-up sheets for like a women's night, and like they're starting to kind of form their own community within our community. It's a beautiful thing because, it legitimately does change lives. Like I see people, lose 50 pounds in 5 months. I see people walk in on day one, like, a little quiet. Like he's not even, they're not even like really kind of like asking questions, and they're super nervous and they're kind of looking around like, what am I signing up for? What am I getting into? Till like 2 weeks later, like joking around, big belly laughs in the back of the room, talking shit with one of their friends that they just met. Relationships that have started. So it's a really, really beautiful thing at D-Town in particular that I'm really proud of because I was kind of a part of building that positive environment, that positive community to where it's not a cult anymore.
Yeah.
It's D-Town CrossFit. It's not CrossFit.
Yeah. Like if I can get, more than breaking sweat, you're breaking shells, right? You're breaking the barriers that people are like maybe holding up and stuff and allowing them to kind of open up, but also choose a healthier and more productive lifestyle for themselves.
Yeah, I kind of joke with Coach Brady, like I'm a good motion coach. I'm a chiropractor. My biomechanics and that sort of thing is kind of is my specialty. That's what I'm best at. That's what I excel at. But at the same time, I'm like, this is just an illusion of value that we're trying to present to these people because they're not going to remember what we just told them in a 30-minute class anyway. But what they are going to remember is kind of how they felt when they got there and how they felt when they left. The physical changes their bodies are making, but more importantly, just like feeling part of a community is so much more our job than actually being like, no, you got to squat deeper. You better do burpees faster.
Yeah.
It's like it's way at a higher level, and the stakes are a lot higher than I think we at least the way I think about it.
Yeah. I think it's also still like support through failure too, right? Like you don't have to exactly you don't have to execute to the highest standard and stuff. Like even if you're not doing it at the elite level, like you're still feeling the support of the community in the gym that you're working in.
What you notice, it's not like failure is totally fine in the gym, but where people really bond And I've learned this from my past experience, like on sports teams, like wrestling in particular. What people really bond is when they're suffering together. So that's what a CrossFit class is. You get there and you're like, oh, this is gonna suck, right? And then you do the workout and it does suck, and you roll around on the floor and you leave a sweat angel for 2 minutes, and then you get up and you start joking around with your friends, and then you go home and you go back and you do it all again the next day. So there is something very kind of like military wrestling, like going in and suffering with a group of people together for some sort of joined goal, and just like repeating that over and over again just like galvanizes a lot of relationships.
And to be fair, it sounds a lot like doing stand-up comedy.
I was gonna say talking about a cult, like especially like cities in particular. Like I haven't really performed in different comedy scenes to any like degree outside of Dallas Fort Worth, outside of like one or two mics or whatever. But yeah, there you hear from different comedians like, oh yeah, that city, it's like this, or you hear a lot of it from Austin, obviously, because Austin,
it's building now,
allegedly is. But then you hear some of the stories about about our friends that moved down to Austin because they think it's going to be so much better than Dallas Fort Worth, and they come back up here for like 4 months later. And I'm like,
yeah, I mean, and there's a whole nother conversation, but what we're going to do right now, we're going to take a short break so you guys get an opportunity to take advantage of these special offers from our sponsors. So we'll be right back with
buy all their stuff.
Buy all the stuff and take the discounts, y'all. We'll be back with Dr. Jamie Jakes. All right, and we're back with Dr. Jamie Jakes, y'all. That's right. This man went from one D-town to another D-town and has accomplished some great things, but he's saving lives. He's saving life one spinal crack at a time.
Yeah, maybe it's not that big of a deal, but I'm improving lives, that's for sure.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Trust me, because I have a cousin of mine out in Chicago. I would say actually he's the #1 holistic chiropractor in like the state of Illinois, but he has pretty much 2 offices. But he has one in Elite. It's called Elite Performance Center, and it's essentially like a giant like performance center where only professional athletes like train in. And then he has his like chiropractic recovery unit, like that has like so many different things.
What's your friend's name?
It's my cousin, actually. Dr. Sunil Pullikat.
Okay. Where's he based out
of? So Highland Park is where the Elite Performance Center is, and then he has an individual office in like a Chicago salon, like a high class salon. Oh, and then he has like one little office room in there.
So you said the word holistic, right? Yeah. So let me ask you a question. What do you think of when you hear the word holistic?
Everything.
What does that mean? What does that mean when you say that?
For me, it's kind of like the way he practices is that everything that he does as far as guiding for for recovery and for like also to help like battle like internal sicknesses and stuff. Like he's all about like herbal remedies. Yeah. Everything that like even the products that he sells are like more like essential oils and like organ. Like he doesn't believe in like prescription drugs. Sure. So everything that he does within practice is like always done in a way that is like out of like the I guess the pharmaceutical realm of like recovery in a sense, right? And like there's like certain machines that he uses that like like he has like a low UV light bed or something like that. Yeah. Then he has a cryo machine. Very cool. My favorite was the Normatec, the leg thing. The
leg sleeve. So there's a lot of like active like recovery stuff too.
I love that Normatec thing. That's cool. I can sit in that thing for like a good 45 minutes. I can just sit there. And then he has like stuff that's like he has like I forgot what the name of it is, but essentially it's like a bed. It almost seems like a therapist like bed, and it has like specialized speakers within it that like you can put like music on, and the sound waves actually resonate through your body, and it has like very avenues of recovery that like this. So like, and it's just like therapeutic. But then but yeah, like even like he'll do like a nasal drain and like has like these
like Q-tips, and he like the long Q-tips that he pops in like these certain oils and jams it up your nostrils, and then snot is just pouring out your like you have to literally have like a garbage can like sitting in front of you because he's just draining it out of you. So it's like the reason why he became into that was because he lost his mother to breast cancer at a fairly early age. He's only a year older than me. And so I was like 18, like a freshman in college. And his mom and my mom were very, very close. And so because of that, like he wanted to he was going into chiropractic school, but like wanted to kind of change the game going into it.
Yeah.
And he's made some very, very smart business decisions to pave him a good way. Now his business is thriving very well. He's doing very well.
That's very, very impressive. Just all the therapies that they actually your cousin actually offers is very, very impressive.
Yeah, because your tone came with some skepticism. Like, what do you think holistic means?
Not necessarily. It's just like that's a very buzzwordy word that does get thrown around a lot.
Kind of like natural or organic.
Exactly, especially in my field. So I wanted to know, A, just more about your cousin's practice, but B, kind of more importantly, like what that word means to you, because that's a good kind of like case study to know about, what someone like you who has a little bit of experience with the field, but kind of like from an outside perspective, like what that word means to you. Because I use it sometimes to describe myself too, but in some ways I feel like I'm not necessarily like a super like holistic chiropractor. So.
Yeah, I think. Would you consider yourself like in the way that you kind of? Well, not maybe as much as you run your business, but I guess that the way as you are as a like somewhat of a medical practitioner and a fitness like trainer, do you consider like your style to be a little bit more rugged or like raw in a style than like a traditional like chiropractor or personal trainer would be?
Yeah, so I think I'm very, very new school in a lot of the things that I do, the therapies that I provide, and the way I approach a patient versus kind of the classical trained variation of that. And by that I mean, so that in chiropractic it's like, talk about a cult, right? It's like there's what we call straights, and what they're called mixers. And so straights are like D.D. Palmer, B.J. Palmer, like the OGs and chiro, like they sort of invented it, even though just like Greg Glassman, they stole it from other people. Like
Okay, yeah.
Hieroglyphics of Egyptian people getting neck adjustments and stuff. But no, they invented it for sure. And D.D. Palmer also was into magnetic healing. He was like a quack, and he just kind of stumbled upon this chiropractic like realm. And then B.J. Palmer kind of took it from there, his son.
Okay.
And anyways, so that's all just to tell you that there are a group of chiropractors where all they do is adjust patients, and all they do is spinal adjustments. They won't even like adjust your wrist or your ankle or anything like that, because everything is coming out of the spine, and the idea behind it is your body is run on what chiropractic defines as innate intelligence, which actually does kind of make sense. It's like, how do those cells know what to do? Which is like they have some sort of innate intelligence that they don't have brains or anything. They don't have conscious, so how else would they know how to do? So there is something kind of to that innate intelligence of the human body, but they believe that when you adjust somebody, all the innate intelligence in your body can flow, all the information can flow better through the vertebra. And that way, that's how, if your elbow hurts, that you just need to get your neck adjusted.
Yeah.
That's like kind of their thought process behind it. Which, by the way, I do adjust the necks of patients who have, pain in their foot. Like, so I do kind of believe in that kind of holistic sort of mindset of like prevention. But what I think I'm doing when I'm adjusting a patient is restoring the proper motion in their joints. And what I mean by that is like another buzzword is like alignment. Chiropractic field. You hear, I'm gonna go get an alignment. I'm gonna get adjusted.
Because like I go to the joint and I just get it's a quick alignment. I'm in and out like 5 minutes pretty much. But that also kind of remind me of something, because I remember my cousin he feels very strongly about one specific chiropractic organization. And so I wanted to get your thoughts on Chiro One or like other chiropractic businesses like similar to that.
So I actually used to work for the Joint. I don't know. I'm not super familiar with Chiropractic One's model or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, how I kind of approached the Joint, how I treated my patients was I'm like, hey, I'm gonna adjust you, and then I'm gonna have you go home or work with a different therapist for all the manual therapies.
Yeah.
And that's where you start getting into like the mixers and stuff, is when you start treating the actual like extremities, or you start treating muscles. As you know, some patients, they're like, or some chiropractors are like, we're just gonna adjust you, and that's gonna get you better somehow. And where I'm more, I would say, more proactive in the way I treat patients is I will work on their muscles as well, with manual therapy and dry needling, which is manual therapy is just like similar to massage, and dry needling is basically the same thing as acupuncture, but the philosophy is a little bit different.
Yeah, my cousin does that too.
Yeah.
He
So, yeah.
advocates a lot for that.
So it's great. It's some patients swear by it. Some patients are like, hey, I don't even like the other shit you do to me. Just do the dry needling. Like, you're paying, it's fine. Yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of where you get into the difference between like the mixers, which is kind of the camp I'm in, even though I do adjust all my patients' full spine if they consent to it, or if they feel like it's helpful for them. And then there's just like the straight chiropractors, and of course they all fight back and forth, and most of us are just like out in the field minding our own business, but there's a lot of like these academics and people that just like get on message boards and show and meet up at conventions and just argue over the philosophy and the mindset. Are we getting patients better?
Yeah.
So.
I feel like, to my understanding with like Chiro One, I believe that's like majority of the people that are doing like adjustments and alignments are actually not chiropractors. They're kind of like training them just to do simple alignments, but at the same time, it kind of works like a multi-level marketing type of business where it's like you're selling and then also trying to bring on more people to try and get them to do it too. And it's
a training protocol.
It's the way their business kind of
but
operates.
They work with non-chiro. Are they work with non-medical?
Yeah, it's like it's essentially they're not
and
people
they're just
who
treating and
it's in a very basic level, but like to my understanding, like my cousin calls them a cult. Like he says like that's an organization, it's very, very cult like, and like what they do is not like in the realm of like what a true medical practitioner would do. It's very, very general.
Yeah. So I don't. Again, I'm not very familiar with this organization.
I haven't seen them around DFW.
But based on everything you're telling me, I would say that's definitely problematic because, you know, as much as I joke about being like a fake doctor, you do go to like 3 years of very intensive school.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a running joke, and it's kind of unfortunate. But when you're in school, it's almost like they're teaching you how not to hurt and how not to kill and injure or put your patients at risk. Like this is like all the stuff not to do is what they're teaching you in school for 3 years, and you're also learning like important foundational things like anatomy and physiology and biology, you know, which is important when, you know, worldwide pandemics happen. You have to like also be like, by the way, this is just like the information. You know, it's outside of my scope of practice. But if you need to know something, or like if you don't want to embarrass yourself while you're playing Jeopardy with your girlfriend, like that's also really helpful whenever you're going through school and learning all the science background. But I would be very, very uncomfortable sending a family member to somebody who is trained in adjusting without them having the foundational education about anatomy and physiology and other medical conditions that you might see in practice. Like one might walk through your door and you're like, I'm gonna adjust your neck, and it's gonna make that situation way, way worse. And that's kind of what school trains you to do. It trains you to do that, and it trains you to pass your board exams, which is like, that's basically school. And then once you get out into the field, unfortunately, most of the time is when you start to actually learn how to practice and how do you actually.
Can I have you actually adjust your mic just a little bit, tilt it closer? There we go.
Like this?
Yeah, a little bit better. There we go.
Eat that mic.
Is
this good right here too?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, so because it's like you were like, it was funny because when you were turning your head, I was like noticing. I'm like, is he like going in and out, or is it like the mic? But yeah,
skipping. I'm also slouching. This is a terrible representation. So I'm trying to eat this microphone as best I can.
But I think you can afford it too. You know, like who is your chiropractor?
So I go over to Parker and see an intern weekly. I go get adjusted, get some
That's where the
manual
school you
therapy.
went to. Okay.
So the way it works, your last 3 trimesters, 2 or 3 trimesters in school, is mostly like in the field. So you work under a doctor, and they kind of like oversee you treating these patients. But eventually they're like, kind of do your own thing. Like,
Yeah.
we trust you now. Like, try and help these patients out,
Right.
or whatever. And so in order to graduate, you need to have like X amount of adjustments. So you kind of get thrown into the business and marketing world at the same time, where you're trying to get patients in to see you from just people you meet out in the public. And that way you have to, like, unfortunately make the school a lot of money treating their patients for free. Anyways, I can go for free.
Yeah.
And I live here. I get to go free for the rest of my life. At least that's the policy for now, because I graduated there. And I can go for free, and they can get a certain amount of credits off of me. So it's like kind of like
It's a trade-off.
I'm getting my help in, the body care that I need, even though maybe it's not quite as from an as experienced person as possible. At the same time, I'm helping them out by helping them graduate. I'm also kind of sticking it to Parker University because I don't pay anything. Right. Make less money.
There we go. I'm sure. I mean, regardless of whatever the cost of tuition was to go to the school and stuff like that. I mean, I think you've earned your keep to be able to get those free adjustments from. In a sense, also, I'm sure that like you can provide some guidance to a lot of these interns and stuff. Like,
so that's a fun aspect of it too. And they do like ask you for like, what are your thoughts on this, and how could I do this better? So you can kind of also help them in their career, and their future by giving them a couple little pieces of advice. So yeah, it kind of goes definitely going there to help out more than because I could get a free adjustment from any of my peers who live in the DFW area. So. That's why I go there, but it also is good for me just to stay consistent and take care of myself and actually practice what I preach. Because there's a lot of chiropractors, and rightfully so, some of them who live out in the middle of nowhere where there's really no other chiropractor, or the one chiropractor in town, you're their direct competitor. So you like hate each other. You got that like scarcity mindset going on between the two of you. So you don't really like get the opportunity to get yourself treated. So because of the place that I'm at, I feel very like, obligated to go out and help those people if I can.
Well, I think that's good. I mean, and again, I think it's also just a testament to like you trying to leave this impact, right? And you never know. I mean, you have your own practice. You never know who you might meet that ultimately could be a very, very key asset to your business and stuff as you grow.
Yeah, I could get an employee out of it one day for sure.
Yeah. So I have a interesting question, and because you kind of say, I mean, even though like you say you're a technical doctor, but like some maybe wouldn't consider you a doctor. Who do you think would be considered more of a doctor, a chiropractor or a dentist?
Oh, you son of a bitch. I love my dentist. I love my dentist. You know what I am jealous about dentists is that they actually can prescribe certain medications. So I can, for example, I go there and get my head shot full of nitrous gas before they even start cleaning. I go 3 times a year. I get sent to outer space. My dental hygienist and we do this like song and dance where they put the thing on my nose and they're like, all right, let's, breathe in through your nose in and out for a couple minutes. She comes in and checks on me and I'm always like, no, I don't feel it. Like, I'm pretty stoned. Like, no, I don't feel anything. I think you need to turn it up way, way more. And she'll just like crank it as loud as high to a point now where she just like puts it on me, cranks it up all the way, doesn't even ask me anymore because she knows what I want.
And she probably doesn't even look in your mouth. She just like lets you take the ride and walk out.
Yeah, she could literally be doing anything she wanted to in my mouth. I would never question her. I'm like, this is great. Here's $200. See you in 4 months. I think in actual practice, chiropractors do an insanely amount more of diverse things for a diverse population, where dentistry, it's like so from the outside looking in, and their training is legitimate.
Yeah.
The practice of dentistry is so like cookie cutter and almost easy. Like there's really, we haven't had
Is
a
that
lot.
shots fired?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they would. Well, I'm sure they would agree with you. A lot of dentists is like, yeah, this is pretty boring because you just like. That's why you see a lot of mental health issues in the dentistry field.
Oh, no way.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't want to bring down the mood of the podcast, but you can search on Google like mental health issues with dentists, and I work with. I work with like a marketer for dentists or a person who like owns different dental facilities or whatever, works with different dental facilities, and they're like, yeah, there's a lot more burnout, and it happens with chiropractic too. There's a lot more burnout, and there's a lot more just mental health issues with the dentistry field, and it's like alarming. It's
Why do you think that is? Do you think just because there's
because
like
it's
a
so
lack?
it's so easy.
Yeah.
I mean, whenever I get like I had 2 new patients come in today, like off of Google, didn't know what they were coming in with, didn't know what their expectations were, didn't know how I was gonna approach their treatment before they walked the door. So I was able to bring them in, connect with them as a human being, try and build their trust in me, because one of them was very, very skeptical. One of them's a neuroscientist is what he told me.
Oh, wow.
He's a doctor.
Oh, snap. Okay.
So he came in very skeptical. It was his first chiropractic appointment. So being able to kind of deal with that. When you're a dentist, you're not even seeing that patient when they walk through the door. Most of the time, you're seeing a receptionist, and that receptionist is sending you to a dental hygienist.
Yeah.
The dental hygienist is doing all the work, and then the dentist comes in, tags hands, looks in your mouth, checks your tongue for cancer, and is like, all right, looks good.
Yeah.
And then makes more money probably than the dental hygienist. But anyways.
Probably.
Yeah, and you can see how that could be so like repetitive and so boring and non-challenging, and I think in practice that's why I would say, even though we probably have very similar backgrounds and very similar training on the human body, that I think chiropractors are actually utilizing our training more than maybe our peers in dentistry are.
Okay. I mean, and I think that's a fair assessment. I think now more than anything, like I'm looking for the dental stand-up comedian that's coming through the field and be like,
There really is.
have you
one,
met
is there?
Jamie?
Yeah, there's like 2 or 3, or there's at least 2 chiropractors in town right now. I don't think there's any dentist comedians in town right now.
I haven't yet to meet I've met a few like doctors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like outside of like what you do, but like some like even general practitioners and stuff,
Yeah.
and they're going into like stand-up comedy. I have yet to meet a dentist
Yeah,
that
that's a good
is
point.
going to stand-up comedy. It just, if I ever do, I would 100% facilitate that introduction.
Yeah.
Which is just to see.
Yeah,
Just to see.
you would come to think about it, you'd think they would fit in well with all of us, like super depressed, super anxious comedians that got into it.
Yeah.
To,
I would imagine if the mental health disparity within like the dentistry industry or the dentistry field, and there's way more mental health issues with people within dentistry, like I would figure they would be trying to find more avenues of being able to spend their paycheck.
Maybe they're just so tired they just want to stay home and.
But I mean, how physically, like, I mean, other than maybe seeing patient after patient, and so it's just kind of like maybe mentally exhausting, just because you're kind of going through the same motions, and it's just like maybe just out of because of how easy it is. I would imagine what you do, there's a lot more physicality that's dealing with. I mean, sometimes you're having to actually like have somebody like lift their body up and then putting your hand up there, and like, legs are not light for the most part, so.
Yeah, like after a long day like today, like my hands are sore because I'm doing a lot of manual therapy. I'm using my thumb, using my fingers a lot, like digging into these like small muscles and everything. So it is pretty physically demanding. It's hard on your wrists sometimes. So yeah, you're definitely going, at least what I'm doing, I'm going to work and kind of putting my body through the ringer like today.
Yeah.
If I take like a week off, like for Christmas, I took like a week off or whatever. I came back and I saw like 8 patients the next day, which is like, above average day for me. But saw 8 patients. I'm like, my hands are cramping by the 7th patient. So it's
Microphone is just falling out of your hand.
Yeah, it's definitely more. Yeah, I just leave it in the stand. And like, Don't mind me leaving the microphone on the stand, but my hands
you're just like doing comedy with claws.
absolutely exhausted. Yeah, so there's a little bit more of a physical aspect to at least the type of therapy that I provide. Definitely working way harder again than a dentist because they're not even getting the scraper out most of the time. That's not even their job.
We're just leaving facts on the table. We're not talking shit. We're leaving facts, y'all. Is what it is for all the dentists that maybe pay attention to my podcast.
Yeah. If you're a dentist, leave a comment. And tell everyone what
I do
want to hear.
I do want to hear from dentists, especially if you're a dentist that does stand-up comedian. I definitely want to hear from you. No matter where you're from, I want to hear from you.
We want to hear your dentistry material.
Yeah. Well, I'll do Zoom. I don't like to do Zoom calls. I prefer the face-to-face interviews, but I will do a Zoom call if you're not in the Dallas area.
Yeah.
Dude, I want to kind of bring it to a little personal note, and I think that this is something that is something that I saw that was beautiful. I think because I'm an engaged man that I'm fortunate enough to be with a woman that very much supports my career and supports my goals and my journey. And I can say the same thing about you, that you have a very, very supportive wife. How long have you guys been married?
We are not married.
You're not married?
No. She actually is currently doing this joke right now where this
I
is
could have
probably
sworn that
why,
either you or her had said.
This is probably why, because you probably walked into an open mic and then went to the bathroom or whatever, but she's doing this joke right now where she's so my husband, and she'll do a joke about that, and she's and she gets to the end, there's actually a rule in Texas called common law marriage, and if you live together and you represent yourself as your husband 3 times in a public setting, that automatically makes you married. So you guys are actually at our wedding, not necessarily.
Wait, does she do stand up too?
She has done stand up.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
She's really funny.
Yeah.
She'll write jokes for me all the time, or she'll give me what I need.
Material, yeah.
For example, I did my birthday show. Oh yeah, you were at it.
Yeah, I stopped by, man, which was great.
Yeah,
there's such
60
a great crowd.
people in a CrossFit gym in Grapevine, Texas. It was a great time. But one of my opening jokes was I just turned 29, which makes me younger than most of the barbells in this gym. And it's an inside joke, but a lot of the barbells in that gym are super shitty. Yeah. And it's one of the contentions in the gym, we need new barbells. And it's but she just Jamie, what do you think about this? You're younger than most of the barbells in the gym. I'm like, yep. Already wrote that in my brain. I know how to deliver it. That's perfect. But yeah, she does stand up. She's dabbled in it. She's actually done very, very well on stage. She's very, very funny, and she's cheating because she's so likable. You just look at her and she's I love this girl. She's the sweetest person and the nicest person. People just literally she was just here. She's not a member here or anything. She was just here for the CrossFit Open, and people just gravitated towards her. And it was actually really good for business because people just gravitated towards this girl just standing in the middle of a giant CrossFit gym watching people work out for points, and people just gravitated to her and started talking to her for some reason, and she would call me over and she's like, Jamie, come on. She's like, she needs to come see you. She was like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Dude, I love that because I would say the same for my fiance is that she's got this energy that people are just wanting to go talk to her and get to know her. And they're like, why are you engaged with him? That's kind of the energy and shit, And it was funny when I brought her around the open mics and stuff like that, just seeing the reactions from other comedians.
Yeah.
And so one of my jokes was I would just like to say, for all of you who doubted me whenever I made a joke about being engaged, my fiance's right there. She's real, motherfuckers. She's right there, But people are shocked usually when they see her and they just kind of get to know her energy, and they're just like, why are you with that bar brown bald fuck,
So that's actually a lot of Natalie's material. So yeah, she's performed. She got booked on a show. Rudy booked her on a show.
Oh, nice. Ramsey? Nice.
At whatever the new. It used to be Bear Creek Bistro, and now it's for some reason a sushi joint. Even though
wait, is this a place in Deep Ellum?
No, this is Euless.
Okay.
The Friday mic where they do the
called?
Friday mic. I don't know.
I'm not gonna ask you to spell all those vowels.
It's Curio. I don't know. That's how they told me to pronounce it. I don't know.
You need that delivery, right? Yeah.
But yeah, so she's just very, very likable. She's got quick, short, succinct, very tight jokes that she's really good at just like
Little
kind
one-liner queen.
getting them, getting them down, getting them. But she's just too sensitive because she'll like kill. She'll go up like she'll get on a roll. She'll do like 3 weeks in a row, like get up on stage 3 weeks in a row, and then she'll just like run into like one bad mic that the crowd didn't really vibe with her, and she's like, oh, I'm not doing it. I was like, yeah, I mean, because that's horrible. That's a horrible feel. Like I mean, you saw I did 20 minutes in front of like 70 people or 60 people, and you know, you could probably set went well. You know, set went well. Did 20 minutes, and then flash cut to today, me like bombing, doing a brand new joke in front of 6 people at the Addison Improv mic at 3:00. A lot of water bottles on the table. And you want those crowds to be well hydrated, is what we always say in the comedy community. But you definitely have to develop that callus and not take things personally.
Right.
When you were excited, it was like I kind of tested them out. I'm like, I tried one of my better like short jokes. It's good read of what the audience is going to respond to. And I kind of like looked them all, and they were just like. I'm like, you should have saw that shit Friday.
Wait, was that your first 20 minutes, or have you done 20 minutes before?
I've done 20 minutes once on accident before.
Just did not look at the light. What's up?
No, it was actually, I don't know if they forgot to time me correctly. They knew I went over.
Yeah.
So because she came over to me after the host and was like, oh, hey, thanks for doing extra time or whatever. But it was the Sleeping Panther. Have you ever been? So
no, I've never even heard of that.
I guess it used to be like an open mic, but now they're doing like a weekly show. But it is attached to like a Motel 6. The first time I got there was like 6 mattresses in the parking lot. There's a sinkhole still there to this day with like PVC pipes like just sticking out of it. It's a real piece of shit facility. But I got booked to do 2 shows for them, and
This is a comedy club?
It's a shitty bar inside. You have to walk through this lobby, which smells like cigarettes and puke.
Yeah.
To get there. But anyways, yeah. So they usually book like 4 comedians on it or whatever, and I don't know if someone was like having diarrhea or whatever who was going on after me. But my set went really, really well in front of the 5 audience members that was there, and I kind of got off stage. They like recorded.
And
the set.
where's this located?
Fort Worth.
Oh, geez, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So I got off stage and I kind of looked at my phone. I was like, oh, I did 19 and a half minutes. That's pretty sweet. There's like a little feather in my cap, and I was like, oh, you kind of have a pretty good idea of how long you've been on stage if you've been doing it consistently. Right. Like sometimes if you take like a week break or whatever, you can't get up on stage for a week. You kind of like lose that feeling. But I was pretty dialed in, and I was pretty dialed into how much time I was on stage, and I'm like, 2 more jokes I would actually want to tell in front of this crowd, and after that I'm gonna have to get off stage. I'm like, man, this is feels like I've been up here for a lot longer than 15 minutes. Started looking for the light and stuff, and I wasn't seeing it. And yeah, sure enough, got off stage and it was like, yep, you just did like basically 20 minutes of stand-up comedy. I was like, oh, cool.
Yeah, I did that at my showcase. I did a T-case to celebrate my 1 year in comedy, and I closed out the thing, and I was planning on just doing 15 minutes. And I'm like riding it through, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm like, no one's giving me the light. I'm the
It's
one
your birthday. No one's gonna give you the light on your birthday.
Well, my comedy versary, I guess you could say. But yeah. And so then by the time I got done, and then I'm just like realized I'm like, I've been talking for a long time. I'm like, I feel it's over. I'm just like, well, that's the show. Like that's pretty much how I ended. Then I look back and I'm like, man, I did fucking 20 minutes. So
that's hilarious. That's such a good 1 year anniversary story. It's like you just kill for 20 minutes and you're just like, I've never been in this situation before. So
no, it was actually it's funny. I wouldn't even say that it was even my strongest set. Like, okay. I mean, I did carry laughs throughout my set, but right around like I would say like the 16, 17 minute mark, I can feel like the laughs were kind of dwindling a little bit. Like, okay, like we're kind of, people were just done,
they're tired.
And I had a great lineup, I had a great show, and then I just kind of like was like, guys, like I want to let you guys know, like I knew I wasn't gonna be the funniest dude in the room. Like, like as much as I put the showcase on and it's to celebrate my 1 year in comedy, like I was putting funnier comedians on, knowing full well they're gonna do much better than me. But like either way, like I was like, from my 1 year, like I wanted to be a headliner, so I just ended up booking myself to do it. Yeah. But I mean, from now, like looking back at it, like I love being the host and having, as an MC, it's like, I feel like, you're not just, you have one 10-minute set, but then you kind of have these little repeat comes back and coming back to the stage, and you're able to work out your callbacks and play around a little bit more. And I have a lot more fun as a host and as an MC, and I think that you can kind of agree. Like,
well, yeah, because I hosted my own birthday party this past week, and I was pretty drunk by the end, but.
I didn't even know. It's funny because like the only time I saw a cup in your hand, you had like ice cream or something like that.
You know what that was? That was the frozen margarita machine.
Oh, was it frozen margarita? I thought that was like a swirly like little.
The red one. The red one was
it was
frozen.
White. It was white.
The white was the frozen margarita, and the red was a frozen daiquiri, and it was toxic.
Oh yeah.
It was so strong. So yeah, I started the show sober. I usually try to be almost entirely sober whenever I'm.
I also noticed that like everyone had general chairs, and you had like the most like relaxing like.
I
launch.
had the Adirondack chair. I thought people were gonna sit in them because they were super comfy, and then no one sat in the front row. That was a weird. It was a really, really good show, but there was still a little bit of a weird vibe and some of because a lot of people stood in the back. CrossFit people.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stand for this whole 2-hour show. They just like stood in the back, and nobody really filled in the front. So we probably should have sat people. But yeah, after the first couple comedians, once I noticed those Adirondack chairs were not being used, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna lounge here.
I mean, it was built for a king, man.
And
they were
enjoy
there
my
to
own
celebrate
show.
you. Yeah, they were there to celebrate you, which was great. And I think that was a beautiful thing to see. Like, man, I'm like, oh man, this dude's got a community behind him. You know, they're like, I'm not knowing if like, you know, who the comedians have brought, but I would imagine like 90% of that crowd at least were all there for Jamie Jakes. And I'm like, man, look at this dude. Like, I wasn't, planning on coming. I'm like, I don't know if you needed a personal invite, but I saw a few shares, and I'm just like, oh, fuck it, you know, like
everyone was invited.
But
You didn't get the Facebook invite?
No, I didn't get the. I don't think I did, but I did.
My bad.
I did. No, you're good. And like, but it was also on the way to my library bar gig, and I'm like, the Grapevine location is 15 minutes from the spot I'm staying in. So I'm like, oh, dude, it was money, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna pop in. Also, just wish the man a happy birthday. I'm like, he's always been a good energy, and like always just been like that vibe that you can tell that commands that respect, and holds like a good integrity. But I mean, dude, you're a fucking hustler, and I think that. For me is what I respect the most too, you know, and I think a lot of people want to do great things within the entertainment field, and it's like everybody wants the love and the spotlight, but nobody wants to work for it. And I even say it in my anthem track and stuff. So, man, I just respect the work that you've done, and I'm glad that you and I had an opportunity for me to really kind of deep dive into really what your workflow is, because I feel like you're on just 7 days a week, and it's just it's a very, very positive quality to see that not a lot of people have, man. So
yeah, and that's first of all so heartwarming to see, like, everyone. If anyone who is there is listening, like, pretty awesome that you were there just to support me. I had the best compliment I've gotten in the past couple of weeks is from my birthday show. Like, several people coming up to me afterwards and being like, "Oh, I didn't know you were going to be like actually funny." You know, like I didn't know like you were actually going to tell like real jokes.
Thank you and fuck you.
Yeah, it's like, well, thank you for coming. I appreciate that you appreciate me.
Yeah.
However, thank you for admitting that. Yeah, like I'm also like a legitimate comedian.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all hard work. And, I still recognize that I'm still very new in this field and I need to work hard. So whenever I get a compliment like that, I'm like, yeah, man, like I work really, really, like it looks like I'm just goofing around, on stage. Like, but man, there's a lot of hard work that went into this. And it's that weird dichotomy of like, hey, I'm here to work hard. I'm here to try hard. But also if the audience senses that you're like trying too hard and taking this shit too seriously, they're going to turn on you, because that's not a likable trait to have. Is someone's like, I'm taking my jokes really seriously. Yeah. You people at the bar, you better listen to me. It's like,
I think, because I one trend I would see sometimes within certain stand-up comedians is that people want to, or comedians will go up there and just talk too much on their struggle or their pain or like what they had to do or what their day was like. And I'm like, bro, like everyone, it's gotta be funny. Everyone has a shitty day. Like everyone has like fucking shit going on, and things are usually difficult to get through. It's kind of like go up there and just fucking leave your bullshit at the door and just be funny. Like
Yeah.
bring something that is relatable and all that kind of stuff.
Like you can talk about shitty shit that's happened, but it's got to be funny. You got to have a punchline for it.
Yeah, you
can't
got to
just be
find
like,
the humor.
Oh man, traffic was really bad, and Jamie let this last comedian do 6 minutes, and I'm only doing 5.
it's like, okay, like just pretend like everything is cool.
Yeah. And,
You know?
and I think that letting go of like any sort of entitlement, right? Like I think there's something like I was running a mic for George at Comedy Arena, which is I think one of the best open mics in
room.
all of DFW.
It's a good room. It's perfect.
It's such an amazing room, and now I have a great relationship with Comedy Arena. And like, but I was hosting the night, and like, we have Comedy Junkie Society, and so like when you're having these type of like comedy groups that go up, like there's certain favor that's going to go up to the more regular or like one of the members of the society that like you have that fresh comedian. They're like, hey dude, why is this person like moving up? I'm like, listen man, like if you want to do it differently, like go find a mic and run it. You know, other than that, like you just have to, if you're going in someone's house, you just gonna have to like work off whatever rules it is, whether it's fair to you or not, but like, again, I think that for you to also have started your own mic and do it in a smart way where like, man, like doing location where like there's nothing else going on there. I mean, like you're doing the game smart. And you're operating yourself and you're holding shit down for being a business owner, being a chiropractor, being a trainer. Like, I mean, that's a lot of hard hats to fill. That's a lot of physical, like intensity you have to put into your workflow, man. And I think that right there is kind of like, I look at it, or like it's the point where like I'm looking back in the camera, I'm like, you could work harder. Like, that's what I tell people. You can work harder because it's like this guy's proven it. And again, it's like it's easy for you to have a workflow where you could probably had 6, 7, 8, 9 patients, maybe a couple training sessions and stuff, and then you have to host a mic and deal with the bullshit like, can I get on, or can you move me up because I'm trying to get here? And all this kind of, like, bro, like it takes a strong mental game to have the positive energy that you have, man. And I don't want to, give you your roses for that, man, because that again, it's like, that's not something right here. This right here is not, the hardest muscle to work. And people are so unaware of sometimes the practices they're putting in that like maybe puts them in the shitty moods that they might be in and all that kind of stuff. So,
and that's when, especially like same thing with everything. I guess everything I do, chiropractic, with coaching, CrossFit, with comedy, you always have to be like positive energy and like upbeat, fun. It's like whatever I'm doing, all my jobs, that has to be the best part of that person's day. Yeah. Whether I'm on stage, whether I'm seeing one of my patients, whether I'm in front of a whole group of CrossFit athletes, like they're there for the community, like we talked about earlier. Like whatever I do, I'm like have to be, and that is exhausting. And you can and you can ask Natalie, like some days I'll come home after like a long day of what's like realistically like, there's a little bit of physical aspect to what I do, but much more of the fatigue is just like mental fatigue, just like being on, listening to the person, responding to the person, helping the person out with what they're asking about, or just generally trying to make their day better is a lot of like mental energy. And like, again, shout out to our significant others for like, just like I'm sure you're the same way. You just like sometimes get home, maybe the mic went bad or whatever, like your set went bad, you had a long day at work and you just like sit down and just like stare at the wall. And
well, I'm in like a long distance relationship right now.
That's right.
And like, I mean, they're only moving down. Her and her kids are only moving down in the next few months. But like, she'll want, like, she didn't talk to me all day and didn't get, it's like, and then I get done when I have time to give her focus. Like, I have no mental energy to even carry the conversation. I'm just like, so how was your day? She's like, you don't even want to talk to me. I'm like, yes, I do.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I really appreciate you.
So definitely
shout out to them for just like
to our
riding
ladies
through our bullshit.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll speak for myself, but like, it's a mental hurdle for me to jump over.
And do you think that you and it's Natalie, right?
Natalie.
Do you think you and Natalie will tie the knot one day, or do you?
I think so. I think so. So the other complicating factor is I'm divorced, I'm 29.
I didn't know
got
that.
I
didn't know
got
that.
married at like 25 and got divorced I think at 27 ish. So she's actually kind of like my first like relationship outside of my marriage where like both parties enjoyed spending time with each other. If that makes sense. I mean, I don't know if you dated in the Dallas Fort Worth scene, but like, you know.
People share.
So yeah, it's she obviously based on her material, she's like very ready to get married, or at least get engaged, and I'm just like, maybe wait for the perfect time to do it.
Well, I mean, but again, it's like I think you found a woman that understands you and understands your flow and
Supportive of
yeah,
me.
very very supportive, and so ultimately, like they're not gonna put so much of their needs as such a hard obligation. They're just gonna be like, okay, hopefully when it happens, it happens. But I'm sure she's gonna nudge you.
She is definitely very kindly nudging me towards at least asking her.
and we'll see when the day comes when when she does
within the next calendar year, probably. Yeah, we'll probably if all things go well, we'll probably be asking the question.
Well, I mean, but it will either way, man. Like I know that.
By the way, if she made it this far into this episode, she deserves to hear that. I'm not telling her that.
Yeah. I'll just clip it and just send it to Natalie.
No, don't clip this. Do not share this as a reel. No.
No, I appreciate you. No, but man, I'm glad that we had a time to hang out in the workout forest. Where we are right now in D-Town CrossFit. And also make sure you guys go check out his business at Grapevine CrossFit. Fantastic show he put on, but I got to see the space, and clearly he's doing fantastic things, not just within the comedy community, but then also within CrossFit and chiropractic. So make sure you guys look up Jamie Jakes and his Google reviews and patronize his business. But I like to end the episodes in a certain way. I always allow my guests to just kind of leave off with a final quote saying whatever you want to leave off, but the way I like to frame it is that if this was the last thing you were ever going to say on camera, what would you put out into the world? It's all you go.
Okay, well, if anyone wants to know what the meaning of life is, the meaning of life is that we are all connected energy, and you pass that energy along to other people, and the most pure energy you can pass on to somebody else is love. So whatever that means to you, if you can pass on love, that is what is going to stay in the world and stay in your community, and it all comes back around, and even if it doesn't matter. So go ahead and love your neighbor, love everyone you meet, and it'll make this world a better place.
Love it. Let's go.
Yeah.